Hey everyone, Rob here from Gunfather Milsim, and today we're going to talk about the 5 biggest mistakes that game organizers commonly make when they're putting on ops. Now, I used to put on games, both local pickup games and kind of local ops. I think I put on 4 or 5 ops, and the largest one I ever put on was about 150 players. So in the grand scheme of things, not that big, but definitely bigger than your typical weekend pickup game. I don't put on ops anymore. Honestly, I had kids and I just didn't have time for it anymore. And I only have so much recreational time, and I want to spend it actually, playing the game versus being an admin or putting on ops. And also, when I was doing ops, there really wasn't anybody locally who was doing it. And now we have a couple different local groups who do a really good job. And I would rather attend those ops than put on my own. So, from my many years of playing ops and putting on ops, I kind of learned what are the do's and don'ts and what kind of scenarios often lead to problems in ops and the whole op just falling apart. This list is not specific to any specific game. I attended an op 2 weeks ago. It was great. This is not calling those guys out or anything. These are just little things I've seen in this op or that op, and they really cause huge problems. Okay, so before we delve into this too far, I think it's important to point out, if you are an admin, if you are putting on airsoft ops or airsoft games, you basically have 2 goals. Okay, the first one is safety, speaks for itself. Everybody's safety is our primary concern. The second one is fun. You want to make sure that everybody has fun. Okay, that doesn't mean just your friends have fun or just the cool guy teams have fun. That means everybody have fun, because essentially you're providing a service. Okay, you're selling a product, and when people buy that product, they buy the tickets, they attend your op, they expect things to be, to a large degree, fundamentally fair, because it is a competition to some degree. Okay, and just like any sporting event or any sporting competition, you expect there to be some sort of fundamental fairness to it. Okay, and I think a lot of admins lose sight of that when they're trying to cater to different groups. The first major mistake that game organizers make is adding a third team or a third faction. Most ops, most airsoft games there's 2 factions: red versus blue, tan versus green. Mercenaries versus corporate, whatever you want to call it. There's 2. For whatever reason, some game organizers like to throw that third one in there. They often call them contractors or mercenaries, and they have little in-game money systems sometimes to pay these guys to do different things. It's kind of stupid, because inevitably what these guys do is they flip on people, and they flip on whatever team they're working for at a really inopportune time, and they shoot them all in the back, and it's fun for them, but for the guys getting shot in the back, it kind of builds up a lot of resentment, and it really pisses you off, because it's not fair. It's fucking stupid. And in the real world, that wouldn't happen, because you're military, you're a contractor. You wouldn't be in business very long if you're known for screwing over people that just hired you. So inevitably, when I was in those games, one, I'd never play those teams because they always pissed me off, and I'd shoot them on sight. I don't care if they're on our team right now or not. I would shoot those guys on sight every time, because inevitably they're going to turn on you. It always causes conflict and resentment. It always causes imbalance, because one of the factions is always going to be playing 2 factions, 2 against 1. It just doesn't work. So my advice, don't ever have a third team. Second mistake game organizers make is having special teams. And what is a special team? It's a sub-team inside a faction that has special rights and privileges and abilities. Like they have special respawn rules or special medic rules, or they can enter and leave the game whenever they want. Usually, when game organizers do this, they're in my experience, they're catering to a specific team, a well-known airsoft team, or maybe a team that came from out of town, or a professional team, or a team that has a lot of social media presence, or whatever. They're catering to some sort of special team, and it inevitably what it does is it builds resentment on the rest of the guys in the faction, because well, why do those guys get special rules? It's also not fair to the other team, the other faction, because well, why do those guys get special rules? I'm supposed to have some sort of fundamental fairness to this competition, and here these guys get an advantage just because they have a Facebook page or whatever. It's not fair. It pisses people off, and it's not the way to run an op. I've had instances locally where game organizers have contacted me and say, "Hey, is your team attending this op? If you do, we'll let you be a special team with this, and this, and these special privileges." And I tell them every time, no, If I attend your op, I'm going to be on whatever team, and I don't want to be any different than anybody else on that team. Now, if my team is tasked with a certain, maybe more difficult objective because you think that my team can handle it, which may or may not be true, I'm all about that. But I'm not going to be given special privileges just because I showed up at your op. Okay. Third mistake is making a faction's base and their spawn the same location. Huge mistake, very common. Now, your base is where your command element is at. It's where they're using radios and giving out missions to different teams. It's also where oftentimes items that are captured as part of the game, props or whatever, are brought back to the base for scoring purposes. Now, sometimes there's missions where the other team can capture those items back. They can attack the base. They can also sometimes capture the commander. All these are very common in ops. Your spawn cannot be that location, okay? Your spawn is a spawn. It's where people go to obviously respawn, reload magazines, hydrate, eat lunch, whatever. It's the one place on the field where they shouldn't have to worry about getting shot at, okay? Do not attack people in their spawn. When a game organizer makes those two things the same place and makes the base attackable, essentially the spawn is attackable, it's also theoretically uncapturable because if you're sitting in your spawn and you get shot, that's where you spawn. Are you supposed to die, not die? It's stupid. It makes the game break down and everything comes to a grinding halt. You should never be attacking people in the spawn, ever. If you have the ability to shoot the spawn, you've won. Okay, you've pushed them to the corner of the map. You need to back off. Congratulations. So as a game organizer, when you're placing these two things, they can be close together. In fact, they probably should be close together, but make the spawn at least 200 feet away. Why? Because that's more or less just beyond the range of an AEG, and therefore you can capture that base. Now, it's difficult to capture because it is so close to the spawn, and people are going to come out of there quickly, out of that spawn, to reinforce that base when it's being captured. It should be difficult. It should be something that doesn't happen very often, but they have to be two separate things. Fourth mistake game organizers make, and this is a huge one, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, and I'm not going to get into story time, but admins have to be admins, okay? Admins are not players. If an admin wants to be a player, they need to take off their admin clothes, your red shirt or wherever, put on faction appropriate clothing, go to the respawn of that faction, and then play the game. That's fine. Admins cannot randomly decide that they want to shoot people for whatever reason. I know this seems like common sense, but I've seen it at more than one op. I've seen it at several ops, and it always shocks me. It is the most unprofessional thing I've seen admins do at an op. And once again, you're providing a service, you're putting out a product. People should feel like they can go to the admin for help, okay? When there's some sort of fairness thing or an injury or a safety issue. That's the admin's job. And when you're shooting people, they feel like they can't approach you. It's absolutely ridiculous. I understand that oftentimes for the purpose of game balancing, admins have to come in and tap people on the shoulder, hey, you're dead, hey, you're dead, hey, you're dead. That's fine. That's balancing. It happens. People expect that. What they don't expect is for the admin to walk up behind them, pull out a gun, and start shooting everybody. Understandably, players are going to be really pissed off about that and probably raw about it for a very long time, and they're probably not going to come back to any of your ops. That admin should be fired. That is absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, I'm referencing one particular experience I had, but once again, I've seen this at multiple ops, and I do not understand it. If you want to play, take off the admin shirt and go play. But don't do both. It's really ugly and incredibly unprofessional. Okay? Don't do it. Mistake number 5 made by game organizers. Failing to fix a game that is obviously imbalanced. Now, setting up a fair game is very difficult. That is the goal of every game organizer, is set up a good op that goes back and forth all day and everybody has a great time. That's the goal, okay? Unfortunately, it very rarely happens. As a game, people sign up for whatever team they want to be on. Inevitably, things get imbalanced. Everybody goes to one team, or all the quote-unquote good experienced players go to one team, and the other team is just going to be the cannon fodder. That's one way things get imbalanced. Another way games get imbalanced is that maybe the spawn's in a bad location. Maybe it's the bottom of a hill or whatever. Just not good field position for one of the teams. Another common one is maybe one team just has a bad commander who just makes a bad decision, a bad strategic decision, and that you don't see coming. And as a result, one team gets a huge advantage early on. They control most of the field, very early on because of this bad decision. And now that team's getting their ass kicked. As a game organizer, it's your job to spot that imbalance and correct it as quickly as possible. And usually it's pretty early in the op. Usually it's within 30, 45 minutes of the op starting. You can see this imbalance and one of the teams is just getting, massacred or whatever. A couple things a game organizer can do to rebalance their game is to take maybe 5 or 10 of their better local players before the op even starts to say, hey, bring uniforms for both factions just in case we need to do some balancing. And then you just have those players switch uniforms and go to the other team or whatever team they need to go to balance things out. That is the best way to do it, in my opinion. Another option is to perhaps move a spawn to a better location or maybe change the medic rules for one of the team, make them a little more favorable. Either way, those little changes to the rule set can often drastically change things on the field and balance them out very quickly. The big thing is you want to fix it. You want to do what you can as a game organizer. Obviously, somebody's going to win, but you don't want one team to just get demolished. You're providing a service. Okay, this is a product, and people aren't going to want to come back to your op if they just get demolished every time. They want to have a fighting chance. They want that fundamental fairness, and it's your job as a game organizer to set up a game that is fun for them to play, and they feel that it is competitive. So that's all I got on the 5 major mistakes that game organizers make when putting on ops. Channel news, I'm still selling Gunfather Milsim patches. They look like that. They cost $8. Get a hold of me at either my email, gunfathermilsim@gmail.com, or on the Gunfather Milsim Facebook page, and I'll send you one. Additionally, lately the channel's been really picking up some steam and picking up a lot of new subscribers, a lot of new views. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody out there who likes, subscribes, and shares my content. It helps me build the channel, and I really do appreciate it. And with that, thanks for watching.